had never felt more exposed in my life than the moment I realized my motel room didn't have a door. The hallway outside whispered my name, and every step I imagined approaching made my chest tighten like a vice. I had been driving for hours down a lonely stretch of highway, the kind of road where the signs disappeared and the headlights only revealed darkness. My phone was dead, the gas tank hovering near empty, and that's when I spotted the neon flicker of a motel sign. It was old, almost vintage, with peeling paint and buzzing lights. Desperation made me ignore the warnings in my gut. The clerk was a thin man with a waxy face and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Rooms available," he said, handing me a key that looked decades old. "Second floor, third room on the left." There was nothing else to the conversation. It's just a nod and a flicker of the fluorescent light behind him. I found the room easily enough, but when I slid the key into the lock, it turned with a hollow click and then stopped. The door frame was empty. No door, just the outline of one, a rectangle in the wall, dark and empty. My first thought was confusion, then panic, then disbelief. I half expected it to be a trick, maybe a maintenance issue, but the hallway was quiet, empty, and seemed impossibly long. I stepped inside cautiously. The room smelled faintly of mildew, mixed with the metallic temps of rust. The bed sagged in the middle, the sheets thin and rough against my fingers. I tried to tell myself it was just old, abandoned, maybe forgotten. But when I glanced toward the hallway, I swore I saw a shadow flick past the opening where the door should have been. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. The darkness outside blurred time. I tried to read, to distract myself, but the silence of the hallway pressed against the room. And then I heard it, a whisper, low and cracked, like a voice dragged over gravel. I froze. The sound wasn't coming from the air vent, not from the floorboards. It was coming from the hall itself, moving, circling, waiting. I convinced myself it was someone at the other end of the hallway, a late-night traveler or the clerk playing a cruel joke. But the whispers grew closer, forming syllables I couldn't understand, almost like they were calling me. I could feel them pressing against my back, the invisible weight of eyes I couldn't see. Sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined a face peering at me from the dark hallway, just outside where the door should have been. The bed creaked beneath me, soft and subtle, though I was the only one there. My heart thumped in my ears as the whispers swelled and ebbed, sometimes so faint I thought I imagined them, and sometimes sharp enough to make me flinch. In a moment of reckless courage, fear-fueled madness, I stowed and leaned out into the hallway. Empty, nothing but the faded carpet and the flickering light above. But then I saw it, a handprint pressed into the wall where the door should have swung. Too high, too small, like someone or something had been trapped on the other side. I backed away, realizing with a chill that the room itself was the trap. No door meant no barrier, no protection, just a thin veil between me and whatever existed in the motel's quiet corners. The whispers became voices, not words, but tones of pure expectation, almost joyous, as if they had been waiting decades for someone to step inside. Morning eventually arrived, pale and gray, washing the hallway in muted light. The clerk was gone, as if he had never existed. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind is right, I swear I can still hear that soft whispering telling me to come back. The knocking started exactly at midnight 3 sharp, deliberate raps that made my blood run cold. I was alone in the motel, but the sound felt impossibly close, as if someone were just on the other side of the door, waiting. I had arrived earlier that evening, exhausted from a long drive through endless back roads. The motel was small and tired-looking, with a flickering neon sign that buzzed like an anxious insect. The lobby smelled of stale coffee and old carpet, and the clerk, a grizzled man with hollow eyes, barely acknowledged me as he handed over the key to room 13. "Quiet night," he muttered, almost as if warning me. The room itself was unremarkable, just a thin mattress, a dim lamp, and a cracked mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. I unpacked quickly, hoping to get some rest before the next day's drive. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, carrying the faint hum of distant traffic and rustling trees. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until the knocking began. At first, I thought it was a prank from another guest, but the motel was nearly empty, and the sound didn't match any human rhythm. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more. I froze, straining to listen. There was no hallway noise, no shuffling of feet, just the knocking. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and approached the door slowly. Peering through the peephole, I saw nothing. Just the dark corridor stretching into shadows. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was the wind or a loose shutter banging somewhere in the building. But when I returned to the bed, the knocking started again, this time faster, more insistent. My pulse quickened. It was deliberate, purposeful, and impossibly close. My skin prickled, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I grabbed the phone to call the front desk, but the line was dead. No dial tone, just silence. My eyes darted around the room, every shadow now suspicious. The lamp flickered, and I felt a chill crawl along my spine, as if the temperature had dropped suddenly. The knocks came again, pounding harder this time, echoing in a way that made it feel like the walls themselves were closing in. I moved to the door, hand trembling, trying to see if there was some logical explanation, maybe a maintenance worker or an animal trapped somewhere. Nothing. The hallway remained empty, silent, except for the persistent knocking that now seemed to come from within the walls themselves. I considered leaving immediately, but something kept me rooted, a mix of curiosity and terror. I leaned closer, pressing my ear to the door. Beneath the knocking, I thought I heard whispers, soft, unintelligible, almost like someone was muttering my name. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and slammed the deadbolt, hoping it was enough. Hours passed, maybe minutes. Time had lost meaning. The knocking subsided, but never fully stopped. A faint, irregular tapping continued, low and relentless, as if the building itself was breathing, alive and aware. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind felt like a signal, a reminder that I wasn't truly alone. When dawn finally crept through the curtains, pale and gray, I forced myself to leave the room. In the lobby, the clerk glanced up as I hurried past. "Room 13 again," he said, his tone casual but knowing, like he had been expecting me. I didn't answer. I just got in my car and drove off, the motel disappearing behind me in the morning haze. Even now, weeks later, I can't shake the sound of those knocks. Sometimes, in the dead of night, when everything is silent, I swear I hear them again, 3 sharp raps, deliberate, echoing somewhere just out of reach, waiting for me to return. I woke to the weight of someone or something lying beside me, their presence colder than any human could be. The sheets hadn't moved, yet I could feel the outline of a body, rigid and unyielding, with eyes wide open staring into the dark. I had been traveling for hours, desperate for sleep after a long shift. The motel was small, a single-story building tucked between two overgrown fields. Its flickering sign hummed in the night, and the faint smell of mildew clung to the lobby air. The clerk, a gaunt woman with tight-lipped eyes, handed me the key to room 7 with barely a glance. "Quiet night," she said. "Enjoy your stay." The room was modest, a bed with thin, scratchy sheets, a small lamp that cast long, uneven shadows across the walls, and a window that rattled with every gust of wind. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and slid into bed, hoping for the briefest escape from exhaustion. The darkness was comforting at first, enveloping me like a heavy blanket, until I felt it, the pressure of another presence. I stirred, thinking I had rolled too close to the edge, but the space beside me felt too defined, too deliberate. The air shifted, chilling my skin. My eyes darted toward the other side of the bed, where I expected emptiness. Instead, a shape lay there, perfectly still. My pulse quickened, but I convinced myself it was a trick of the shadows, the hotel's draft making my imagination betray me. I froze, holding my breath. The shape didn't move, didn't shift, yet I could feel it, a cold weight pressing against the mattress, a quiet stillness that screamed in the silence. My mind raced, trying to rationalize maybe someone had entered the room while I slept, but the door was locked, the window shut tight. I was alone. Tentatively, I reached out, my fingers trembling as they brushed the sheets. The body was icy, impossibly so, like it had been drained of warmth. And then I noticed the eyes open, unblinking, reflecting the dim light of the lamp. They weren't human eyes, yet they were fixed on me with a dreadful intent, unmovable, unyielding. My breath caught in my throat. I scrambled backward, heart hammering, grabbing my phone, but there was no signal. Every sound in the room seemed amplified: the hum of the old air conditioner, the creak of the ceiling, the soft sigh of the wind outside. Swoon. I tried to speak, to call out, but my voice was barely a whisper. Sfrey. The body remained, eyes locked on me, and the room felt impossibly small, suffocating. Hours, what felt like hours, passed. I stayed awake, clinging to the edge of the bed farthest from that presence, listening to the faintest movements, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. The shape never moved, never breathed audibly, but its awareness was palpable, pressing against me in the quiet of the night. When morning finally came, pale light spilling through the cracked curtains, I braced myself to look. The bed was empty. No one was there. The sheets were undisturbed, perfectly flat, as if I had been imagining the entire night. But the cold lingered in the mattress, and the memory of those wide, unblinking eyes burned into my mind. I left the motel quickly, avoiding the clerk's gaze. She didn't speak, didn't ask where I had been, only watched as I disappeared into my car. Even now, weeks later, I can't sleep without checking the edges of my bed, wondering if that presence might return when I'm least expecting it. And sometimes, just as I'm drifting off, I swear I feel the cold weight again, lying beside me, watching.